Hello, I'm Stan Fagerstrom, and I welcome the opportunity to share some thoughts with you on how you can put more fish in your boat. You know, it's a funny thing. In this country, we accept practice as a part of almost every kind of participant recreation. And if you'll think about that for a moment, you'll realize it's true. We scrimmage for basketball, we scrimmage for football. Before league play starts, the bowlers will be out there, one practice line after another. I don't have to tell you what those crazy golfers will be doing at every golf course in the United States this weekend. One bucket full of practice balls after another, trying to keep their left arm straight, trying to keep their head down, trying to improve their score through practice. But how many people do you see in the yards, in the area where you live, with a casting rod or a spinning rod and a practice casting weight, trying to perfect their casting skills through practice? If you know one, you're an exception. And yet you know that's one of the few things that we can do to control the number of fish we catch. Because if we go to the nearest lake tomorrow morning, we can't do one blessed thing about air temperature, wind direction, water temperature, wind velocity. You're not even going to know what kind of a mood your fishing partner will be in. But one thing we can control is our ability to put a lure on target time after time after time, and we can do that through practice. And if you'll do that, and if you'll follow the procedures that I'm going to share with you, it will translate into more fish in your boat. It's just that simple. Before we get into the actual mechanics of developing casting accuracy, let me clarify a couple of things. There are questions that I hear over and over again at the outdoor shows at which I appear around the United States. One is, what role does physical strength play in the development of casting accuracy? Actually, very little. You don't have to have a bicep like a Chicago Bears tackle to do a good job of casting, nor do you have to be between 16 and 38 years old. Good casting is a matter of having good equipment and then developing the timing and the coordination through practice that will enable that equipment to do the job that it's designed to do. A second question that I hear over and over again is, Mister, what kind of trick equipment do you have that will let you hit those paper cups like that? Well, it's not trick equipment. It is quality equipment. What you'll see me using in this video, as well as when I'm fishing, are G. Loomis graphite rods, DuPont Stren lines, or a variety of reels, all of which are available to you at any well-stocked sporting goods store, any place in the United States. Now, I'm often asked, what specific rod, reel, practice weight should I purchase when I set out to really learn how to cast? My recommendation is this. I recommend that you get a 5.5-foot graphite rod, load the reel of your choice with 10 to 12-pound test Stren line, and by all means get a flat-sided practice casting weight of 5/8 ounce. Don't settle for 1/4 ounce or 3/8 ounce. Get 5/8 ounce in a flat-sided weight. And I stress the importance of the flat-sided weight for a reason, because much of your practice should be done before you ever get near the water, and that means practicing on a hard surface. Now, a round weight will roll as you reel in, and that has a tendency to twist your line, and that's the last thing you need in beginning your casting practice. So get a flat-sided weight, 5.5-foot rod, and you should be in business. All right, how about targets? My favorites are hula hoops or kiddie's wading pool. Both work equally well, and my recommendation is that you get a hula hoop of bright colors so it stands out well from the grass of your yard. And when you begin your casting practice, set those targets 25 to 30 feet away and don't place them 1 foot farther. Now, someone is sure to ask, do you really mean to set your targets just 25 to 30 feet away? Indeed I do, because most newcomers, when they begin their practice casting, concentrate on distance rather than accuracy, and they should do just the opposite, because I'll make you a promise. If you'll concentrate at targets at 25 to 30 feet distance until you can hit them consistently, then greater distance will come along as a fringe benefit all by itself. Now, if you do as most beginners do and concentrate on distance rather than accuracy to see how far you can throw the plug, you're going to be in trouble from day one. Another question I'm asked repeatedly at outdoor shows is, can you show me how to adjust my level wind free spool reel so it won't backlash? Well, I can do that, but keep in mind that anytime you screw down every tension control device that you have on a level wind reel, you're going to reduce the casting efficiency of that reel. I don't care what the advertisement that you saw in an outdoor magazine said. It's still going to reduce the efficiency of the reel. What you should strive to do from day one is to educate your thumb so your thumb can control the spool and prevent the overruns that cause backlashes. Because you see, if you'll do that and allow your reels to operate as efficiently as it should, you can stand out there and fire a fishing plug to its intended target all day long, and you'll do it just as easily as I can. And you'll do it much more quickly than you might think possible. Let's take a look at the first step in attaining casting accuracy with a level wind free spool reel on the casting rod. Here's the way I go about it. I take a nice relaxed stance so I feel comfortable, keep my weight evenly distributed. I get my rod and reel out in front of my body like this, and I rotate my wrist to the left so my knuckles are up, my reel handle's up. And I draw an imaginary line from my nose to the target. And when I cast, I make my rod walk right up and down that line. Now, that is such a departure from what the beginner usually does, because how many times have you seen this lately? If you haven't seen it last time you were out, take a look at the next 10 fishermen you see, because about 7 of them will have the rod in this position. Now, there is tremendous strength in this little G. Loomis graphite rod, but I have to load it up and make it work for me. And if I start my cast back here as a beginner so often does, I might as well have a broomstick in my hand, because then I'm going to be doing the work rather than my outfit. So I keep the rod and reel out here in front of my body, and I draw that imaginary line and make my rod walk right up and down that line on the cast. Now, you recall I said I rotate my wrist to the left so my knuckles are up, my reel handle's up. A very important reason for that. Watch what happens when I come back this way, reel handles to the right, thumb up. Watch my rod tip, because right there my wrist joint locks up tight, and yours will too. And the only way you can possibly cast holding your rod and reel in this position is to do that Scandinavian version of the Hungarian hammer throw, and that we want to try to avoid. So that's the basic casting stroke. Rod and reel out in front of your body, rotate your wrist to the left so your knuckles are up, your reel handle's up, draw that imaginary line from your nose to the target, and make your rod walk right down that line. You can't be off left or right. That's the basic casting stroke, and it's the first step to achieving casting accuracy and enjoyment with your level wind free spool reel and casting rod. I've already demonstrated the basic overhead cast with a casting rod. Now let's take a look at another technique, the second most important cast that you can learn with the casting rod, in many instances the most important. 3 ways to do it. Now, let's suppose that I'm up in the bow of my bass boat and a fish rolls over here on the left side of my boat. Now, here's the cast that I'm going to make to get to him. I'll do it like that. The plug will stay right down close to the surface of the water, and it gets a nice, easy entry when it gets where I want it to be. Well, let's suppose that the fish rolls on the starboard side. Now, instead of doing this movement, I come around like this, and I make the cast in this fashion. Now, having said all that, let me back up and say this. In the beginning, when you set out to learn that underhand flip cast, forget about this, forget about that. Draw the imaginary line from your nose to the target and make the rod walk right up and down the line in this fashion. Always keep in mind that your rod is going to do exactly down here what it does up there. Those are the 3 techniques. Like this, or like that. and they're extremely important and very valuable to you as a fisherman. Let's take a look at the spinning outfit. I mentioned in the beginning that there are only a few things that we can do to control the number of fish we catch. I've mentioned casting accuracy. A second is to always match our equipment to the problems that we're up against. Now, spinning was introduced around the world as a means of lightweight fishing, and it will still do that job better than anything else that you get your hands on. Many of the things that you heard me say about using the level wind free spool reel and the casting rod also apply to spinning, because I'm still going to keep my rod and reel out in front of my body. I'm still going to draw that imaginary line from my nose to the target and make my rod and reel walk right up and down that line. Spinning is extremely important to a real serious fisherman, and I urge you to watch and to practice the next few steps that I'm going to show you. As I mentioned, spinning is best employed as a means of lightweight fishing, and I've changed from the 5/8 ounce casting weight and the 10-pound test line I was using with the level wind reel to a 1/4 ounce weight and 6-pound test trend line on this spinning outfit. Now, much of what I've already said about using the level wind free spool reel applies to using the spinning outfit, because I'm still going to keep my rod and reel out in front of my body. I'm still going to draw the imaginary line and make my rod walk right up and down that line. Now, if you've just purchased a new spinning outfit, chances are your manual says to open your bail and to drape the line across your right forefinger. And when you're ready to cast, you simply extend that forefinger and away goes the plug to the target. And then you control the flight of the lure by dropping your right forefinger to feather the line as it comes off the spool. But there's more than one way to do anything. And I'm going to share with you a couple of other procedures to use with the open-face spinning reel that might not have occurred to you. One of them is to open your bail, but instead of draping your line across your right forefinger, you drop the right forefinger here and trap the line against the spool itself with that right forefinger. Now, when you're ready to cast, you release the pressure on the line with your right forefinger, and away goes the plug to the target. Now let me share with you a procedure that I worked out with the open-face spinning reel that I really like for lightweight work when I'm using lures like 1/32, 1/64 of an ounce, 1/16 of an ounce. Here's how I do it. I open my bail, but instead of keeping the line draped across my right forefinger, I sneak the forefinger of my left hand around here in front of the spool, and I trap the line right there with the tip of the left forefinger. And now, when I'm ready to cast, I release the line with that left forefinger, and I feather it right here against the lip of the spool. And it's a super way to achieve accuracy with lightweight lures with the open-face spinning reel. I found that it was somewhat awkward for me to get that left forefinger out around the bail of the open-face spinning reel. And I worked out a way to avoid that problem, and I'm going to share it with you right now. As you can see, I've changed outfits. I've gone to the G. Loomis IM6 700 spinning rod, one of my all-time favorite fishing tools, and a different open-face spinning reel. And if you look at this reel carefully, the first thing that you'll observe is it has no bail. Well, now don't say, look at the old fellow there, he's ruined a perfectly good spinning outfit, because that's not true. Because there isn't one thing that that bail does that my fingers or your fingers can't do better, provided you'll teach them what to do. Now, I said that it was difficult for me to work my hand in around with that left-hand release around the bail on the open-face spinning reel. I don't have that problem as long as the bail's removed. Now, it's very easy for me to get my left forefinger out here. I simply flick the line off that little stub of the bail arm that's remaining, and I have the line trapped right here with my left forefinger. Now, when I'm ready to cast, there's the imaginary line again, nose to target, and blowy, there it goes. And I'll achieve a degree of accuracy with this bail-free spinning reel that's very close to what I enjoy with the level wind free spool reel. You can do exactly the same thing. Now, certainly, one of the questions that you probably have is how in the world does he get the line back on that little stub of the bail arm? There are two ways to do it. I'm going to show you the easiest way first. It's not the one that I use, but it's the easiest way. And had I to do it over again, I would use this procedure myself. Simply you trap the line at the end of the cast with your left forefinger against the lip of the spool. Now, you simply reach down with your right forefinger, pull a line directly back towards your body, and crank. Now, you notice I didn't even look when I did that, but yet there's the line on the reel, just as if you had a bail. Now, the second way to do that, I'll cast again so you can watch what I do. This is the way I learned. That's why I still use it. Got the line trapped here. I make my cast. I trap the line again at the end of the cast. Now, I reach down with my right forefinger and simply place it on that little bail arm, and away we go. I find this just a super way to fish, as I mentioned before. Lightweight lures like 1/16, 1/32, clear up to 1/64 of an ounce. All you need to do is practice a little bit to do the same thing yourself. And I think you really enjoy adding this to your bag of tricks with the open face spinning outfit. I discovered something else once I had worked out my procedures with this two-handed cast and no bail on my spinning reel that has really worked very well for me. In ever so many fishing situations, it's extremely helpful if you can keep your bait or your lure right down close to the surface of the water so you can throw in underneath something like overhanging brush, perhaps a dock, something of this nature. Instead of making the overhead cast that I've already shown you, when I want to cast to go along to the surface of the water, I point my rod tip the direction that I want to cast. I come up a little bit, come down, and I release with that left forefinger. And if you watch that cast carefully, there went the plug right along what could be the surface of the water. And when the plug gets into the target area, if I execute the cast properly, it's almost like I walked over there and dropped it from about that high up rather than driving in as the overhead cast is inclined to do. It's a super way to deliver lightweight lures to a target and to have them light very softly, and it's well worth building into your own approach to spin fishing. The outfit I have here is a closed-face spinning reel, and this is one that I really enjoy talking about when I have newcomers to fishing to talk to, or that not uncommon lady who comes up to me at almost every outdoor show and says, "Isn't there some kind of outfit that you can show me how to use so I can go with my husband and enjoy a day on the water and catch a fish now and then without forever picking at tangles of one kind or another?" Well, this is the answer. It's a super tool for your little boy or girl, anybody getting into fishing. Now, if you've read the manuals that come with this type of equipment, you'll note that they probably have said, depress your thumb control button on this push button reel, and then let go when you want your plug to fly out. Well, it flies out all right, but the problem is that when you press in again, as the manual says, to stop it, it stops with a jerk, and I'll demonstrate what I'm talking about. Now, I pressed in on the thumb control device, I cast, I press in again, and here comes the plug 15 feet back in this direction. Now, you don't want that, of course, because you want your plug out near the target. Now, here's the way to beat that problem. Place the closed-face spinning reel in your left hand and extend your left forefinger and trap the line right here against the opening of the spool. Now depress your thumb control device with your right thumb. When you're ready to cast, let go with both fingers at the same time. And there goes the plug, walking right down that imaginary line to the target. The key to that cast, of course, is that all the time the plug is in the air, the line is flowing across the tip of my left forefinger. All in the world I need do to control where that plug lights is increase upward pressure with the left forefinger. That's the real key to that cast. I'll do it once again. To stop the plug, I simply increase upward pressure with the left forefinger. At various casting clinics around the United States, many times I've seen someone hand an outfit like this to a little boy or girl, and more often than not, up will come two little hands and arms, try to hold the rod just the way I'm demonstrating. Because a child's wrists and arms aren't as strong as yours or mine, and they find it difficult to control a rod with one hand. So instinctively, they try to put two hands on the rod. And I hope you will encourage them to do that and to use the left forefinger out here in front, because if you'll do that in very short order, the child, your wife, your girlfriend, whoever, will be taking the closed-face spinning reel and they'll be firing that plug out there like that, right on a dime, and they'll catch their share of fish, maybe your share too. I've explained what a wonderful tool the closed-face spinning reel is for a youngster just getting into fishing, and I've asked Christine to help me illustrate what I've been attempting to talk about. Now, I probably spent less than a half hour a couple of times with Christine over the years showing her how to use the closed-face spinning reel, and I'm going to ask her to demonstrate a cast or two here. Now, you'll notice that she's done just what I've been talking about. She's extended her left forefinger to trap the line against the opening of the spool. She depresses the thumb control device with her right thumb, and when she's ready to cast, she lets go with both fingers at the same time. Let's see that again, Chrissy. And all the time the plug is in the air, the line is flowing across the tip of her left forefinger. Now, she had never used one of these before until I started showing her. How do you like it, Chrissy?
I didn't think it'd be that easy.
Super. I've already emphasized the need to match your equipment to the problems that you're up against. It's so important. Let's suppose that we're in a situation where we're going bass fishing, and we know the lake that we're fishing has big fish in it, murky water, heavy cover. Anytime you find me in a situation like that, at least one of my outfits is going to be a flipping outfit. And before I ever get near the water, I'll have loaded my reel with DuPont's Prime Plus, because this line has 50% less stretch than most fishing lines, and anytime you decrease stretch, you increase sensitivity. That helps me determine what this jig is doing down there underneath the water when I can't see it, and it's also an asset when I want to get a quick hook set and move a fish out of the cover that it's in and get him out of there so he can't tangle me up and I have a chance of catching him. In the flipping method, be sure that your reel does have a flipping feature, as this one does. You let out line the length of your rod, and then you depress your pre-spool control and strip out this much more line. Now, when you're ready to cast, you don't cast from the reel. You simply flip your bait out to its intended target. You can get a very low trajectory, and you can get an extremely soft entry. And again, where you have murky water, heavy cover, it's a super way to fish. Now, you'll notice, watch my left hand, because when my lure reaches the target, my left hand comes up like this. The lure is sinking, of course, and now the line comes up under my right thumb and over my left forefinger. I like that positioning because I have quicker reflexes and more strength in my right arm. My reel handles are over here, and when I feel that little tick of a fish picking up, bingo, I get into him with both hands, and then I'm right on that reel cranking, take him on in. Again, the flipping technique isn't difficult to learn, but it's a super way to fish under many circumstances, and I urge you to consider using it in your own fishing. The longer I'm around this business of fishing fishermen, the more I'm convinced that modern day fishing is becoming much like playing a round of golf. Because what does the golfer do when he sets out to play 9 or 18 holes? He goes armed with a whole bag full of clubs. And every one of those clubs is a tool designed to let that golfer solve the problems that he encounters from hole to hole. And those problems aren't always going to be the same. Now, that golfer could go out and play 9 holes or 18 holes with only a putter and a driver. But his score would be awful and he wouldn't enjoy it. And much the same thing is true of the fisherman who doesn't take advantage of the tools and techniques that are available to him today. Now, when we discussed flipping, I said it was a super way to go when we were fishing murky water with big fish in heavy cover. Now let's suppose that we have a situation where we still have big fish, still have heavy cover, but now we have extremely clear water. Well, you can't flip under those circumstances, because if you attempt to do so, you'll spook the fish. You'll scare every fish out of there. So what should you do? Well, I know what I'm going to do. Just like a golfer reaching in his bag of clubs for a 9-iron, I reach in my bag of clubs and I pull out a G. Loomis pitching outfit. Because now you see I'm going to use a different approach. It'll be much the same as flipping, but it will enable me to get more distance. So I can stay farther back from my target and still get a nice easy presentation and present the lure accurately. And this is called pitching. Now, one more thing. I've gone from that 20-pound Prime Plus line I was using to 16-pound Magnathin, because this line has super casting qualities, and with this G. Loomis pitching rod I can still get greater distance, again with an ease of presentation. And now to make the cast I do it like this. I let out about this much line. It's kind of a pendulum effect, and right here I pitch the bait or plug right out to its target. I still have a nice low trajectory, and I get a soft entry, and it's very accurate. Again, as you've heard me say before, there's always more than one way to do darn near anything. And let me show you a second method of pitching that some fishermen around the United States use to great advantage. Done like this. Instead of making that cast that I just made, I'll nestle the bait right here, or the lure right here in my hand, and I'll trap it right here with my thumb and forefinger so I don't hook myself rather than the fish. And when I'm ready to make my presentation, I put a bend in this rod and bingo, there goes the lure right out to the target. Once again, I've matched my equipment to the problems that I'm up against. And this you can do through practice. And as I've mentioned several times, that will only mean one thing: more fish in your boat. For many years, I've had the good fortune to be a featured performer with International Sportsman's Exposition. Perhaps you've attended one of these fine shows. They play each winter in Sacramento, Seattle, Denver, San Mateo, and Portland, Oregon. They're produced by Ed Rice out of Vancouver, Washington. And if you've seen one, you already know they're the finest outdoor shows in the United States. And if you haven't been to one, and you're in one of those cities I've just named, I hope that you'll come to the expo, because that will give me opportunity to answer any additional questions you might have about casting, and that's something that I would look forward to and enjoy very much. It didn't seem fitting to wind up this video without having you meet a couple of my favorite fishing partners. We've talked about a number of things. We've talked about the importance of developing casting accuracy through casting practice, and we've talked about the necessity of matching our equipment to the problems that we're up against. And if you'll do that, if you'll follow the procedures that I've outlined for you, you're going to be a better fisherman. You know, I've been fishing and writing about it for a long, long time, and I've always maintained that the next best thing to fishing is having a chance to visit with people about it. And I thank you, and I thank God that we live in a country where I have that kind of opportunity. Thank you, and God bless you.